Hey everyone, hope you're enjoying 319. I am, mostly. Uh, it's definitely one of those controversial leagues. I won't get myself too entrenched with that argument, but yeah, the went pretty well for me. One of the most profitable starts to a league ever, actually. And the way that I started was with this build here. And it was, probably a little atypical to the norm, but I always struggle with league starts because it's in my nature to only really want to do meme builds. I want to experiment with new mechanics or just mechanics that I discover that I don't think have been very well explored, but that's a terrible way to start a league. And in order to actually have the funds to do that experimentation, I need a way to make those funds. And usually the best way of doing that is having a decent league starter. But I still just can't bring myself to play extremely meta builds, and so I end up doing things like this, things that honestly I think end up working better than meta builds anyways, because I'm not having to I'm really not having to compete in the market, for one. That's one of the nicest things about league starting a off build, an atypical build, is you're not competing with anybody with a build like this. And this build is Searing Bond, something that is a bit of a, yes, it's a bit of a meme at this point, but Searing Bond has been buffed and buffed and buffed, and without any peep in its direction about it. And obviously that's because it's Searing Bond, and most people don't want to play Searing Bond. They probably think, oh, you've probably fallen to one or two camps, and I agree with those camps. I don't like totems, and I don't like traps and mines typically. They're just not very, we'll say, tactile ways of playing the game. They're not very responsive ways of playing the game. You're making something else to do the thing. But Searing Bond's a little different. Searing Bond actually feels pretty good because, unlike other totems, it is very quick. When you cast Searing Bond, the laser that comes up is much faster than spell totems. And there have been a ton of changes since Searing Bond was ever anything near popular to everything in the game, which allows for some nice experimentation to occur. And I actually played a Searing Bond build back in Harvest, and it was that's where I got the confidence to, because I actually skipped Sentinel. It's the one league I've ever skipped. It was a good time, I thought, because I needed a break and because Sentinel didn't have any balance changes, which is the main thing that I'm concerned about in Path. I like balance changes, so it was a good thing to skip, but I needed something that I knew would be strong enough to clear the content when I came back. And since it's only been buffed since Harvest, it seemed like a good time. What we're going to be doing is using Phantasmal Searing Bond, or we're going to be looking at my Phantasmal Searing Bond, and we're using Phantasmal Searing Bond because there were a couple introductions in the past couple leagues that has really buffed Phantasmal Searing Bond. Phantasmal Searing Bond specifically is about let me pull it up real quick. So here you can see at the bottom it says +5 to maximum number of summon totems. And the reason we have +5 to maximum number of summon totems is because we have put it inside the recently updated Diala's Malfaction, which was the only part of this build. I had no idea how what the cost of this item was going to be, how rare it was going to be, or anything. Unfortunately, it turned out to be a little rare, but I still had it extremely early because the league, I mean, getting very far very fast in this league was very profitable. As a the other thing, I stopped building this out as well, this character, once I got to the point that I had a good amount of money. I didn't feel like investing in this character. He didn't need investment to be very good. He was just very good as it was, and I didn't care to min-max him or see how far I could take him. The obvious next upgrade would have been an Ashes, because an Ashes of the Stars would give him another 30%, which would be another 3 totems. And let's take a look real quick at what additional totems get out of this, because a lot of people out there are like, oh yeah, wow, additional totems for Searing Bond. Additional totems doesn't do anything for Searing Bond. It's not like that damage stacks. It doesn't, it doesn't stack, so why do you care about it? Well, there's a lot of reasons to care about it. Not only, obviously, does it make it easier to hit the target, but let's take a look at some of our scalers here. So, of course, we're Hierophant. There's just too much quality of life here to ignore. But more specifically, Ritual of Awakening. You get 5% more damage per summon totem. Right there, when you have 9 totems, that's 45% more damage, and potentially we could get this all the way up to like 65%, 70% potentially, if we wanted to invest in that way. That's obviously huge. Not only that, but we get a massive amount of mana regen from that as well. And even though I've reserved a lot of my mana, I'm still taking Mind over Mana or Matter, because it's a great defensive layer even with this amount of mana when I have this much mana regen. And then, and also, it takes almost no mana to run the skills because of Sanctuary of Thought. I just want to put that in there. So even with Mind over Matter and not having much mana, if you're taking a lot of hits, yeah, you're probably scared that you're not going to have the mana to defend yourself, but that's not the case. And then the last part, which is absolutely huge again, you and your totems regenerate 1% of life per second for each summoned totem. Obviously, if you're getting up to 12, 13, 14 totems, that's a lot of life regen. And this is all, and that's important for your totems as well. I mean, Divergent Decoy Totem has a lot of life regen on its own, but Searing Bond totems do not. So it's great to have this. This node alone is so much freaking value in this build. It's hard to overstate. But let's ignore that for a second. There's actually other places that having additional totems helps. For instance, you get 150 armor per totem here. That's amazing. It's a free over 1,000 armor in even bad scenarios. And then we have each totem applies 1% increased damage taken to enemies near it. So this is like another more multiplier here, another 10+%, which is pretty solid on top of having 30% increased totem damage. So a nice cheap, I mean, this is only brown, purple, opalescent by the looks of it, violet opalescent. That's super cheap. So just a nice, easy anoint. This is not even remotely optimized. I didn't change this once. There's a lot of ways to build this character. One of the better ways to build it would have just been to do a strength stacker with Iron Will. It would have made him tankier as well as do a lot more, probably just damage. But damage is not an issue for this character. Damage is really great because on top of Searing Bond, we're not just Searing Bond. Let me put that down. The way that we propagate our Searing Bond is with body swap totems. And body swap totems specifically in a Replica Stampede that has 80% more damage allows us to get pretty juicy ignites and a way to utilize combustion for boosting our damage from Searing Bond even more. But the nice juicy ignites, and I mean, so not only does it do damage, though, like I said, it propagates the Searing Bond. They go around and do the moving for you, and they will move with you through the map. It's pretty great. I can, you know, demonstrate that in a second here, but I want to get through the rest of the build real quick. You don't need a 6-link steering. I'm not even using anything in here. This is just waste. I should have stuff in here, and I don't. This is just where I stuck all my auras and crap. I'm using 2 curses, elemental weakness and flammability, and I'm using vitality because why not? It really helped. Vitality isn't for me. It's for the totems. Totems have a low life pool these days ever since they were changed to have high damage resistance but low life. So the extra 200 life regen from vitality really helps. And yes, they do already have a lot of life regen from that node I mentioned before, but 200 flat on top of that makes it so that you don't really have to worry about them. Like I've said before, Divergent Decoy Totem is still a great go-to because you yourself do not have a lot of layers of defense. Totem characters, that's usually how they go. You could make him more defensive, but there isn't really any reason to. And the reason for that is that Totem Mastery has Taunt. And even when you're not using decoy totems, you're taunting constantly and with a whole bunch of totems. It's rare for things to be interested in you at all. By the time you drop a decoy totem, nothing cares about you. So it's pretty great. You get to walk around and do what you want. This build is great for because of how Searing Bond works and the fact that these frickin' totems last 20 seconds apiece without any additional investment. Additional beyond what I have here, and I haven't invested in totem duration. All I've taken is these nodes here for totems, and then this side up here, and that's it. You know, I don't have the totems here. I didn't go down and grab these. I will say that this additional physical damage reduction here would be nice. That would be nice. There are occasionally some really hard-hitting physical mobs that can manage to get through the totems. But it doesn't really matter because the rate at which you can make totems is just absurd. But what I wanted to get at is the area, just the massive area you can cover with these totems. Blight or altars or anything like this, that static content over a expedition. This build is great for expedition. Any build is great for expedition that is damage over time, that doesn't come from an ailment. And the reason for that is that GGG hasn't really implemented any modifiers of any kind that impact non-ailment damage over time. So you don't have to read anything. The only thing you have to look for is the ones that are highlighted that say, immune to fire damage. That's the only mod in the entire game that messes with this build. You can roll any maps. It doesn't matter. You can roll any. The only thing that that can be a little annoying is cannot regenerate health and mana. Like, then you pick up a mana potion and you're fine. It's not a big deal. But that's the only thing that can be annoying. Every other mod you just don't care about. In Expedition you don't have to read. You just, except for you look for the fire ones that are highlighted anyways. It's absolutely great for that. For a beginning build, it was a great experience. No death to Cyrus on my first attempt. I can pull that up now just so that you can see what that looks like. But I skipped the video to the last part, to the last phase.
Feel the thrill of the void. Everlasting fire.
And what you'll notice here is exactly what I said. The body swap totems automatically attack him and pull the beams on top of him.
Feel the thrill of the Force. Everlasting fire.
It's especially nice for a guy like Cyrus, for your totems to automatically know who to attack, because I'm pretty trash here, as you can tell. But even for somebody that is not great at these boss encounters, it's very easy. You can just block all of his the meteors on the right side that are supposed to come down that tunnel with your totems.
Yes. Beyond, there is only horror.
It's pretty funny though, when he does that, it moves all of the totems out of the way, so you do have to kind of recast him there.
I felt something.
So, pretty straightforward for bossing in that situation. Also, just so you can see, my tooltip damage here is at right now it's showing at 1.3 million, and obviously that's without some of the other damage things built in, things like, you know, flasks and curses and elsewhere. The damage is somewhere between 2 and 3.5 million typically. Like I said, I'm using a Vixen's here just to easily apply both of my curses because I'm lazy. I've got really bad gear. This is my League starter gear that I have on here. The amulet's okay. I'm not using any like lake gear or anything. I mean, look at that helmet. It's awful. This is the stuff I was wearing at the beginning of the League. And Replica Stampede is extremely cheap. And Replica Stampede, I like Stampede in general. It's nice being able to allocate another skill on top of just having flat movement speed. It negates lots of really annoying movement reducing abilities like vines and stuff in the game. So it's nice, especially when you're not stacking movement speed from other sources. So that's pretty much it. It's proven really strong as a first character. I suspect that you could optimize the damage to be at least 5 to 10 million pretty easily without heavy investment. But yeah, other than that, and the jewels I have in here are really cheap, just straightforward, just life, resistances, and damage over time multi. Some totem resistances, I think, as well, yeah. Really cheap. Like I said, still my stuff from the beginning of the League in here. I haven't played them in the past week or two, so. But anyways, if you have any questions about how it works or anything like that, feel free to post it down below. I'll quickly show real quick how these totems kind of attack guys. And you can see how large the body swap explosions are. And actually, how fast this is as a mapper is you can... A lot of the times body swaps will stay ahead of you and you can just keep going. It's great in Delve. It's great in most... there wasn't really any content I felt really held back by on this build. And that's why I just think it was a really unorthodox, pretty good League starter, that the only expensive thing ended up being the Dialas. So, thanks. If you want to see more meme, more experimental builds than this was kind of a already tried and true build, like I said. But if you want to see things that I'm experimenting with, I should have some other videos out either already or being uploaded right now. I currently have 4 characters on the League with 1 more planned. So keep a lookout. But thanks. Take it easy.